Nostalgia is one of the most powerful forces in the world, especially when it comes to design. And there are few ways to harness that nostalgia better than with a great vintage photo. But sometimes you might want to add a little bit of life to those old photos by adding a splash of color, and it can really help make them feel even more alive. Well, today I'm going to show you how to colorize your vintage photo in Adobe Photoshop in mere seconds. So to bring some of that life back into our black and white photo, all we have to do is go up to Filters, Neural Filters. And then we're going to go down here to Colorize, which is the tool that's going to make this magic happen. Now, if you haven't used this tool before, it may instead show a download button just like this. If you see that, go ahead and click that download button. The download is super quick and you don't even need to restart Photoshop. And since it's direct from Adobe, you don't have to worry about any third-party software. But since we already have the Colorize filter downloaded on our end, all we have to do is toggle this switch on. And we can see that didn't take any time at all. Photoshop immediately added in all the appropriate colors to our photo, pretty much like magic. Now there are still some adjustments that could be made. For example, right here we can see some profile options. Now right now it's set to none, but some of these options might be a good fit for specific circumstances. But I will say that from my experience, a lot of them are going to look pretty ghastly. So it takes a little bit of trial and error. So in our case, retro bright, that's looking a little too neon. So let's try retro faded and see how that looks. That one's definitely not too bad. The lips are still a little bit neon, but everything else is looking a little bit better. So let's go ahead and try retro denim. Okay, that might be my favorite. It's looking a little bit more natural than those other selections. Now, if we wanted, we could use these sliders to adjust those settings even more manually, but in our case, I think it's looking pretty good to start out with. And then just for comparison's sake, I'm going to change the output to new layer. That way we can see our before and after. And then all we have to do is hit OK. And that's looking great. So we can see our before and our after. That is magic. Really brought that life back into our photo. Now that said, nothing's truly perfect, and there are usually a few areas that may need some extra work. One area that I can see right off the bat that looks a little bit off is her finger. It's a little bit bluish purple, and it sort of looks like she has frostbite. But we can clean that up really quickly. All we have to do is go down here to create a new layer, or we can use the shortcut Shift-Control-N to do the same thing. Then we're going to set the blending mode for that layer to color. Next, we're going to take our eyedropper tool, or the shortcut I, to bring that up. And then we're going to take a selection of our subject's skin. That way we can get an accurate sample of her skin tone to make sure everything matches. And then we're going to select our brush tool, or the shortcut B. And if we need to, we can right-click and make sure our settings are correct. So in our case, we need to make sure that our hardness is at 0% so that we don't have harsh edges. And just make sure our size is appropriate, but I think this will work for us. And then all we need to do is start painting with that skin tone over the areas that we want to adjust. And as I brush that in, look at just how easy it is to bring this back to a more natural color. So that looks absolutely fantastic, and it only took us a few seconds. So with all that extra time, let's go ahead and look at another example. So here we have another vintage photo, this one with a little bit more of a sepia tone. But it's still a great candidate for the Colorize Neural Filter. So one more time, let's go up to Filter, Neural Filters, and then we'll toggle that switch for Colorize. And once again, it immediately brought those colors to life. And same as before, we can click through these profiles. So we've got retro high contrast, which again is just too much. Then we'll see retro bright. And that one actually doesn't look too bad, so let's stick with that. And then again, just for comparison's sake, we'll leave the output as a new layer and we'll hit OK. And then just like before, we can see our before and our after. And again, just like our last example, we can see that there are just a few areas that could use some work. Mostly in this girl's hand over here, and in this gentleman's hand as well. They're both looking a little bit dead. Seems like maybe hands are a little bit of an issue for our neural filter. So one more time, we'll bring up a new layer and set the blend mode to color. Then again, using the I shortcut, we can select our eyedropper and we can click on some of those skin tones. Then again, we'll use our B shortcut to bring up our brush tool and we'll just start painting in with that color. And then I'll do the same with this gentleman over here. Again, using the eyedropper, I'll go ahead and select the skin tone from his face, which is looking a little bit blurry, but there's not a whole lot we can do about that right now, unless you want to generate him a whole new face, but that's a whole nother video. And then again, we'll just paint with that new color. But for our purposes today, I think this is off to a good start. You can always do some finer adjustments and make this exactly the way you want it, but you get the general idea. And that's how you colorize your photos in Adobe Photoshop in just a matter of seconds, really helping to bring those old photos back to life. And now that you've mastered colorizing vintage photos, what about taking a small, low-quality photo and boosting that up to high res? There's another great tool for that here in Photoshop, and I have a video right here to tell you all about it.